loved.
Chris is in a better place. He made us laugh. He made us cry. He walked with us. He was not perfect, but then who is?
Even though he's gone, he leaves behind a special piece of himself, the ability to leave us laughing.
Good evening. I'm Mike McKinney. Chris Farley was a star whose talent shone so brightly, but dimmed much too quickly. He was a local boy who made it to the big show, but he never became too big to come home and hang out with his family and friends in Madison. He was always the class clown, but behind the mask of jokes and pratfalls, Chris had what he called his demons. Despite those demons, there was still a feeling that he was one of us. That's why his death hit us so hard. Tonight, we look back at the life and successes of our friend Chris Farley. When you watch home video from the Farley family, you can tell he grew up in a house where having fun was a requirement. And wherever there was a good time to be had, you could always find Chris Farley right there in the middle. Thomas and Mary Ann Farley ran their household on fun and faith. Chris, along with his three brothers, Tom Jr., Kevin, and John, and his sister Barbara, never forgot their roots. The Farley kids spent many summers attending the Red Arrow camp in northern Wisconsin. Chris was active as a camper and later became a camp counselor. He never passed up an opportunity to entertain or impress the crowd.
He would wander from cabin to cabin, and if he came across an unhappy child or one that was homesick, he would start talking and joshing with them, and pretty soon had the kid laughing and back into the activity.
The stories of Chris, the class clown, are endless. You could say he was just honing his skills for what was to come.
As one of his counselors, I was supposed to be real straight-faced and serious about it, and his mother comes in and she said, "Oh, hi, Mr. Burroughs, now what'd he do?" You know, just like, here we go again. But
Chris, whose nickname was Farls, always worked the crowd at Edgewood High School.
He was quick with the joke, and he was the kind of kid in class that no matter what he did, you know, you couldn't get mad at him.
And after a dream of becoming a professional football player didn't materialize, he went back to what he did best, making people laugh.
He wasn't getting in the game, so he took off running down the sidelines and dove in the mud and kind of waddled in the mud. Make sure his date saw that.
When Chris moved to Milwaukee to attend Marquette University, the acting bug was biting him pretty hard. He continued making laughter a major part of his life, but he never forgot what was truly important to him.
Extremely religious, which may come as a great surprise to the audience, but Chris didn't miss an opportunity when he was back on campus of going to chapel or to Jesu.
The 33-year-old star of TV and screen maintained his Midwestern roots. And when he came back to Madison, he always seemed to be glad he was home.
I love Madison. I love Madison Theater, and I'm glad to, be back to contribute a little bit.
Whether he was doing a little motivational speaking for the Badgers,
to get down and get their base under them, speech over with the part, and, so they can go this way or that way on them. No, a little pep talk. Coach is probably going to have to start from scratch.
Or hitting the high notes for a political friend. Or just showing his appreciation for a fan.
Pam?
Chris Farley was Wisconsin-born and Wisconsin-proud.
Chris used to spend a lot of time when he came back home, and he'd go with his mom to church over at St. Mary's, which is in Westlake. And even though he had a lot of work in Los Angeles, New York, he was much happier here. He loved to go up to his folks' cottage in Minocqua in northern Wisconsin and kind of hide and get away from it all. He was one of those people, I think the city always kind of said, he's one of our guys. He made it, yeah.
Chris's comedy talents began in Wisconsin, but it wasn't until he graduated from Marquette and moved to Chicago to join the famous Second City comedy troupe that he started perfecting those comedic skills. Second City is well known for launching the careers of comedians like Gilda Radner and John Belushi. Growing up, Chris idolized Belushi, and ironically, the two actors who were larger than life in many ways both died at the early age of 33. Besides their untimely deaths, the comedians also shared a fear of stardom.
Never my intention to try to reach an audience or to have a big audience or even be in films. I just wanted to, do shows off Broadway and things like that.
For 2 years, Chris enjoyed the improvisational style at Second City, and it was from that stage where Saturday Night Live producer Lorne Michaels plucked Farley to move up to the big show, a move that made the somewhat insecure Farley very nervous.
When I first went out there from Chicago, my director was involved with Saturday Night Live. His name is Del Close, and I asked Del, what is it like on Saturday Night Live? What can I expect? And he said, well, it's a lot like being shot out of a cannon.
I believe I was the first person to interview him after he had landed the job on Saturday Night Live. And I went over to his house, and, obviously he had every reason in the world to be arrogant about this, but he wasn't. He was really just an awfully nice, very human kind of person.
If Second City was Chris Farley's launching pad to great things, his 5 years on Saturday Night Live prepped him for a life of superstardom. His SNL skits were legendary. Mitch Hank takes us back on a hilarious ride down Farley's very funny lane.
It was 1990 when Chris Farley first stepped onto the famed stage at 30 Rock in New York City. It didn't take him long to make himself feel at home and create characters that we will never forget.
Hi, welcome to the Chris Farley Show. I'm Chris Farley.
From day one, Chris Farley made us laugh.
What's that?
Oh, this? Son of a... Small children, pregnant women, they should be kept away from...
Farley was well aware of the legacy left behind by some very well-known Saturday Night Live alums.
Is he gorgeous? Can we hear about it?
The early Saturday Night Live guys like Belushi, Murray, Aykroyd, Chevy Chase, all those guys were, I love those guys. And, those guys were real heroes of mine, and so it was kind of really great to be Saturday Night Live, Studio 8H at Rockefeller Center, where it all went down, where my heroes walked the hallways, and it was kind of nice.
It was his physical style of comedy that set Chris apart from the pack. He wasn't afraid to make fun of himself or his appearance.
He was the most self-effacing comedian I've ever seen, and it was just such a part of him. But and I think the genius was his vulnerability.
The oversized comedian often used his size to make us laugh, whether providing commentary.
That's right, Bennett Brower back with another commentary. Thought you'd seen the last of old Bennett, perhaps. Thought the network bigwigs would have sent Bennett and his negative Q rating on a slow boat to Shanghai. Well, maybe I don't look the part. I'm not svelte. I don't look comfortable on camera.
Strutting his stuff as a Chippendale dancer.
Can you say
or playing an overgrown toddler.
Say hello. Can you say hello, Jackie?
I wear special pants. See, these ones here.
Okay.
Chris Farley dominated the SNL stage, stealing the limelight whenever the camera was pointed his way. But perhaps he'll best be remembered as motivational speaker Matt Foley, a character based on Chris's real-life spiritual advisor and priest.
Now, as your father probably told you, my name is Matt Foley, and I am a motivational speaker.
In 1995, after 5 years on Saturday Night Live and many memorable characters, Chris decided to step off the stage in New York City and head west to Hollywood and try his luck on the big screen. Mike?
Thanks, Mitch. Farley's talent and ability to make people laugh went beyond the intimate confines of television. He told his friend Congressman Scott Klug that one of his toughest gigs was performing on Capitol Hill.
There was a real awe-shuck sense about Chris, too. I mean, he, when he met Newt Gingrich, he was just, he kind of didn't know what to say.
I, Newt Gingrich.
I, Newt Gingrich.
Do solemnly promise to continue to be a good speaker.
Do solemnly promise to continue to be a good speaker.
I promise to help the American people.
I promise to help the American people.
I promise to smile when people call me Landslide.
I promise to smile when people call me Landslide.
I promise not to kill Big Bird.
I promise not to kill Big Bird.
I promise that my book will be way less boring than Al Gore's book.
Taking the step from TV to the big screen was more like jumping out of an airplane at 10,000 feet for Farley. But gradually, through his small roles in films like Wayne's World, The Coneheads, and Airheads, Chris began to grow his movie wings and soar. Jackie Kahn has more on the star who needed the bigger screen to hold his enormous talent.
For many of us, Chris Farley's jump from the small screen to movies may have appeared effortless. That's because his gift of making people laugh translated so easily onto the silver screen. And it was in movie theaters like this one here in Madison and others across the country where millions came to love Chris Farley.
Well, you have to get yourself up for a film set. The only people that are around you, there's no live audience. You have a crew there of probably about 12, 15 people that can't laugh during a take because then it's ruined, you know, or something like that. So you kind of don't know how you stand in that, and you have to get the adrenaline up from within.
And Chris Farley knew being a movie star was different than being a television star, but he made that transition from the small screen to the big screen successfully. Along for the ride was close friend and fellow Saturday Night Live star David Spade.
We worked together for 5 years on Saturday Night Live, and he, you know, we just kind of clung together right from the get-go. And we did Tommy Boy together, and now this one we've just been kind of joined at the hip for last 5 years since we met, you know. Great guy, makes me laugh all the time, you know.
It's good to have a guy around the set that's just kind of fun and gets my jokes and likes to screw around, because you don't always have that. And if I didn't have him to hang out with, these days are long and it's kind of rough, so it's good to be with someone you already know.
Farley and Spade had smaller roles in other films, but it was Tommy Boy that launched them into movie stardom.
Yeah, that's your new office now, college grad. Come on in there. Awesome. Hey, there's even a fridge. This is great. You can put 6 packs of soda in here.
While his films weren't likely to earn him an Oscar, they did earn Chris legions of loyal fans. After Tommy Boy, Farley and Spade teamed up once again to make Black Sheep, another film with plenty of laughs and plenty of pratfalls.
I think I got it.
No way.
I think it's in there.
Well, then look.
You look.
All right, we'll both look together. 1, 2.
And the laughs didn't stop once the director yelled cut. Chris was just as funny off camera as he was on.
Yeah, he looks like he just, you know, stuck his head in to smell a bomb and it went off.
Chris enjoyed talking with crew members who had worked on some of his favorite movies, and he loved spending time with his little buddy, David Spade.
Yeah. It's not really work. It's like paid fun.
Jesus, sir.
The old fake kiss.
The doozy in Laguna Beach, we opened with it. We killed back in 78.
Tahoe opened for Sonny and Cher.
We're at Uncle Chuck's Chuckle House. Laughs. Big laughs.
Farley's film career took him around the world, and he took his family along for that ride. His brothers visited him on set, and Chris and his mom traveled Europe together to promote Tommy Boy. Chris's film work continued to showcase his ability to make people laugh at his own expense. It earned him the respect of those he worked with.
Farley has the energy of about 12 men, you know. He really is a wild man.
Farley's wild ways continued onto the set of Beverly Hills Ninja. The role was perfect for his brand of physical comedy.
Everyone can relate to it because I'm sure they've stumbled or fallen or slipped on the ice, something like that.
Ninja? You're a ninja? Get out of here! You're a ninja!
Yes, I am a ninja.
Very admirable. Then perhaps you will know what these are.
Chris's movie career doesn't end with Beverly Hills Ninja. Even at the time of his death, he just wrapped up shooting a movie with Friends star Matthew Perry. Almost Heroes is scheduled to hit the theaters next year. Mike?
Thanks a lot, Jackie. You know, with the success of his film career, Chris Farley's star sparkled. And now the kid who always wanted to be liked and the center of attention was living out a dream. He did what stars do, hang out with each other, and sometimes that led to a life of excess. But his famous friends knew Chris loved being the life of the party, and the depth of his talent was just beginning to emerge.
He played himself as a dumb guy. He wasn't dumb. And so there was the vulnerability plus a real genius, a real talent there, and I wish I could have seen another 50 years of that.
He was a clown. I mean, he was a clown to the 10th degree. I mean, and yet you saw that kid in him, and he was very lovable.
He's fun to hang out with, and he's funny, and I would go see him in a movie, so it's good to be in a movie with him because I think people would want to go. And I don't know, after all this time, I run out of things. We just, you know, it's good. We've been friends for a long time. We will always be. I don't know if we're always going to do movies together, but we'll always be buddies.
As you may have heard, we lost a good friend, Chris Farley, today. He passed away, so we still have to come here and we still have to do the shows. But to Chris, he was a good friend and one of the greatest comedians I had ever known. He'd always come to this show and give it 100%. So say a prayer for him tonight, if you would. God bless you.
You know, it wasn't just the famous who consider themselves a FOC, or friend of Chris. He was one who walked with the rich and famous, but never lost that common touch. Although he was frequently seen on the East and West Coast, he left his heart on State Street.
Chris Farley, I knew he was Madison's favorite son. He was an ambassador of goodwill.
I remember hearing a lot of stories of my friends at the bars and stuff, talking about when they'd seen him there, and it was just really neat to talk with him. And he was always nice to the students, and he'd spend time talking to people.
It was really nice to basically sign anything, and he was a cool guy.
I remember having a cocktail party at my house, and Chris was invited, and things were a little slow, so he disappeared for a few minutes, and then all of a sudden there was a crash, and he came rolling down 2 flights of wooden stairs, head over heels, and we were all scared to death that he'd killed himself, thought it was real. It was just one of his, his casual pratfalls. He was very approachable. He was every man's man, but when he walked into a room, he lit up the whole place, and he was so approachable. Instead of giving you a handshake, he'd give you a big bear hug.
He left Wisconsin, but the Wisconsin never left him. You know, I remember when we were at SCTV, or at Saturday Night Live, he wore my Wisconsin sweatshirt on the air in the closing shot, because it was when they were going to the Rose Bowl that year. Big Packer fan. Loved to come back here. And, I think like everybody today, I think all of us are just a little bit numb.
Every time he came back to Madison, the whole town was abuzz. I mean, I'd get phone calls at work. Farley's in town, he's downtown, and he used to always come in, and he'd take all the time in the world to sign autographs and meet people. He was a real genuine star.
The news of Chris Farley's death spread across the country like a bad joke, which unfortunately was all too real.
Being in a newsroom, you hear, as newsroom should, someone says, Chris Farley just died, and it just hit me really hard. The man was a sweetheart.
Farley's pajama-clad body was found on the floor of a Chicago condo by his brother John. Chicago police indicated there were no signs of foul play, and results of an autopsy are still not available. Chris Farley's life was one of great talent, but also one of excess. Chris the Clown tried to mask his battles with his weight with drugs and alcohol. In his last major interview in Playboy magazine, Chris mentioned he still had to work hard at relationships, controlling his weight, and other demons. Just seems he ran out of time.
I mean, it's something we talked about over the years, to be like John Belushi, except to live, would be what to do.
A lot of saw this coming. Chris had some problems, and he ate too much. A tremendously big-hearted and sweet guy.
In Madison, the shock of hearing that the local boy who had so much life in him was dead rippled throughout the capital city. Wisconsin State Journal editorial cartoonist John Kovalik felt an emptiness with the death of Chris Farley. His simple tribute was featured in newspapers across the country, making a sad connection with millions of Chris's fans.
To make sure it was an appropriate cartoon, I faxed it to some friends, and the reaction was immediate. One friend actually said that she started crying. It's been, for me, on one hand, extremely gratifying, and on another hand, extremely humbling that people have reacted this way to the cartoon. And really, it's not the cartoon, it's what Chris meant to people, which is causing the reaction.
Today, Chris Farley returned home for the final time. It was a sad day as his family and friends paid their last respects to the man who made millions laugh. The private funeral was held at Our Lady Queen of Peace Catholic Church in Madison. His college friend and spiritual advisor, Matt Foley, led others in remembering Farley.
And so we want to get across that we're hopeful that Chris is in a better place. We're thankful for what we received from him, that he was a human, that he struggled as we all struggled, and that's why I think he brought a lot of warmth to people, was able to make people laugh because we were able to see in ourselves Chris. And Chris brought many pleasures to many people, much love. So we want to express that Chris would never have succeeded in what he did without the foundation of his family, who loved and supported him dearly. He gave so much to them, and they gave so much to him.
Fans of Chris Farley will be able to pay their final respects during a memorial service at Edgewood High School. The details of that service have not yet been released. Now, when I spoke with the Farley family, they were appreciative of the thoughts and prayers of Chris's fans in Madison and across the country. They've asked instead of flowers, people make a donation to Chris's favorite charities and organizations, either Edgewood High School, the theater department at Marquette University, or the Make-A-Wish Foundation of Chicago. In the time I spent with the Farleys before Chris's funeral, I noticed a definite sense of sadness. Chris's dad, Tom, told me that he felt like there was a hole in his heart. But he also said that time will heal that pain, and the best way to start that healing process is in a way that Chris showed us best, through laughter. The family was at ease talking about the happier times when Chris did this or Chris did that. His mom, Mary Ann, remembered the Black Sheep premiere in Madison when Chris was just so funny. He signed countless autographs for everyone there. I even got one. His sister Barbara recalled that her brother was always special, always coloring outside the lines. And that's what made us feel a part of him. His everyman style made us forget about our troubles for a while and just laugh, sometimes at tears. Now, in the midst of our tears, the class clown would still want to make us laugh, take the pain away. And we can only hope that his demons were finally put to rest, and he's in peace, leaving his new audience laughing.